There's so many people who love Shaniqua, who want it different for her. And if you are watching this and people are watching this, let her loss be a testament so that you don't have to go through this and your family doesn't have to go through this.
6 children, 1 apartment, one Friday morning in July. The oldest was 13 years old, the youngest, 9 months. And somewhere between those two ages, 5 other kids woke up on the south side of Chicago and walked into something no child should ever have to carry for the rest of their life. Concordia Place, 5th District, Chicago. You probably haven't heard of it, but if you lived there, you couldn't forget it if you tried. This is where Shaniqua Kinnard was born. This is where she raised her children. This is where she fought, loudly, publicly, fearlessly, for the basic right to live without mold on her walls and rats in her refrigerator. She stood in front of city officials with a dead rat in a gray plastic bag and asked them, straight to their faces, "What should we do?" That was 2021. 4 years passed. Nothing changed. Nobody came. Nobody fixed anything. And on July 11th, 2025, someone walked through her door, and Shaniqua Kinnard never walked out. Her community called her Shaniqua Star, said she was the light in a place the city forgot about. But here's the thing about being a light in a dark place. You become visible to everyone, including the people you never saw coming. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Shaniqua Kinnard was one of the most dangerous people in Chicago. Not because of anything she did with her hands, but because of what she knew and who she was willing to say it to. But before we get there, you need to understand what kind of woman she really was, because the system failed her long before July 11th, 2025. And the moment I tell you how far back that failure goes, it's going to make you furious. One central question that will thread through every chapter of this story: if the people responsible had done their jobs, would Shaniqua Kinnard still be alive? Hold that thought. We're going to come back to it. And stay with me until chapter 4. I'm going to give you 2 safety tips that could protect someone you love from ending up in a story exactly like this one. You'll want to hear them now. If you believe a mother who fought for her children's safety deserves to be remembered, not erased like the system preferred, hit subscribe right now, because Jarvie Toms Dixon is going to have his name in a court file. Shaniqua Kinnard deserves to have her name in your feed. She was born in that apartment, raised 6 kids in that apartment, died in that apartment, all while begging the people in charge to make it safe enough to live in. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this before you scroll past it. If the building had been fixed in 2021, would Shaniqua Kinnard still be alive today? Doctor up your honest answer in the comments, because this question is going to sit differently by the time this video ends. I promise you that. Welcome to True Crime Footprint, where we unveil the darkest mysteries and the most terrifying true crime tales. Kindly hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our new stories. Your support keeps these stories alive. Most people leave the neighborhood they grew up in. They find a job, find a way out, move forward, move up. Shaniqua never got that story. She was born inside Concordia Place, 5th District, Southside Chicago, a 297-unit development managed by Capital Realty Group. And when she died at 30 years old in 2025, she was still in the same apartment she came into the world in. Same walls, same floors, same address. 30 years. That's not just a detail. That's the entire frame of her life. By 2021, Concordia Place wasn't just run down. It was a public health problem with a mailing address. Mold on the walls, roaches, termite damage, rats turning up in places they should never be. And this wasn't accidental. This was a management company collecting rent checks for years and spending nothing on the people living inside. Shaniqua had 6 children in that apartment. The oldest was 13. The youngest wasn't even walking yet, all of them breathing that air, growing up in it. So she built something, the Concordia Place Tenants Association. She became the voice the other mothers in that building needed, but were too afraid to be themselves. She connected with the Rainbow Push Coalition, got Reverend Jesse Jackson involved, and called for a rent strike. For a moment, it looked like it was working. HUD stepped in. July 2021. Federal pressure, the kind that should have forced Capital Realty Group to act. They stonewalled every inspection until HUD had no choice but to shut the whole process down. Federal intervention. And still nothing changed. Now here's who else was moving through this same district at the same time. A 25-year-old named Jarve Toms Dixon. While Shaniqua was building tenant associations and showing up to city meetings, Toms Dixon was picking up felony charges. Burglary and looting during the 2020 unrest on West North Avenue. 18th District. 2 people. Same age. Same broken city pressing down on both of them. Completely different choices. In 5 years, their paths will cross inside her apartment, and only one of them walks out. Stories like Shaniqua's disappear when nobody's paying attention. She was ignored enough. If this story matters to you, subscribe and make sure this channel keeps telling it. Capital Realty Group collected rent from families living with mold and rats for years. HUD came, got blocked, left. Nobody faced real consequences. So here's my question for the comments. Should property managers who knowingly neglect their tenants be held criminally liable when something goes wrong inside those buildings? Not just fined, criminally liable. Drop your honest answer below, because what Shaniqua did next, what she physically brought into that boardroom, is something you need to see to believe.
U.S. Marshals and Chicago police have a suspect in custody after finding a woman beaten to death inside her Southside home last week.
And WGN's Christine Flores has the latest on the investigation.
Good evening. The beloved mother leaves behind 6 children, the youngest 9 months old. Family members say it has not been an easy journey through their grieving process, but they say they are standing strong for the children.
There's so many people who love Shaniqua, who want it different for her. And if you are watching this and people are watching this, let her loss be a testament so that you don't have to go through this and your family doesn't have to go through this.
Latasha Kinnard is referring to her sister, Shaniqua Kinnard.
She was the wild child, the spirited child. She loved to have fun, and she loved her family.
According to police, the 30-year-old was fatally assaulted in Riverdale in the city's far south side. She was found unresponsive around 8:10 Friday morning inside of her home in the 13,000 block of South Martin Luther King Drive. According to the medical examiner's office, she died from multiple injuries from an assault, and her death was ruled a homicide.
Let this be a testament to domestic violence and abuse. If a man is putting his hands on you, that's not a caring and loving man. That's not a protective man. That's not an overseeing man. That's not a man who actually wants the better for you and your future and your kids at that.
Shaniqua leaves behind 6 children, the youngest 9 months old, the oldest 13-year-old Amari Smith.
I want people to know that my mom was very kind and that she loved all the people who supported her, and she was very grateful.
Chicago police announced 30-year-old Jarve Toms Dixon was charged with first-degree murder in this case.
This is a very hard time, and the only way that I'm getting through it is with the love of friends and family and time. And at the same time, it's like there is no amount of love or support that's going to bring her back.
March 2021, a conference room somewhere in Chicago. Suits on one side of the table, a tired, tearful mother on the other. Shaniqua Kinnard reached into a gray plastic bag and placed a dead rat on the table in front of Harry Stife, the regional manager of Capital Realty Group, and his representative, Samson Roser. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She just looked at them through tears and described the moment her son watched a rat crawl directly into their refrigerator, the place where his food was kept, where her baby's food was kept. Then she asked 4 words that became the heartbeat of an entire movement. What should we do? The room had no real answer. With Reverend Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Push Coalition standing behind her, Shaniqua helped push a full rent strike. The media showed up. Cameras rolled. For a brief moment, the weight of public attention felt like it might actually force a change. It didn't. Capital Realty Group absorbed the coverage, outlasted the pressure, and kept right on operating. HUD got stonewalled. The rent strike drew headlines for about a week and then quietly disappeared from the news cycle. And Shaniqua went back to that same apartment because she had nowhere else to go. Now 4 years pass, and here's where it gets really interesting. The woman they ignored in 2021 is still in that building in 2025, still raising 6 kids, still speaking up about conditions that had not improved one single bit. Still the loudest voice in a complex where most tenants had long learned to stay quiet. Most people hear that and assume the story ends with the system eventually listening. But what happens next changes everything. Someone had been watching, and on July 11th, 2025, they stopped watching and started moving. I'm not going to push you to subscribe right now. Honestly, if this story hasn't made you feel something yet, go to the comments and tell me what this channel needs to do differently. Seriously, if a mother walking into a boardroom carrying a dead rat to protect her kids doesn't move you, I genuinely want to know why. That comment might be the most important one on this entire video. She put a dead rat on a table in front of the people responsible. She cried, she begged, she fought. So tell me honestly and leave your answer below. Do you think that 2021 meeting made Shaniqua safer? Or did standing up publicly make her more of a target? Did speaking out cost her everything? Because in the next chapter, July 11th, 2025 arrives. And nothing about it is going to be easy to hear. July 11th, 2025, a Friday, Chicago summer. The kind of day that feels completely ordinary right up until it isn't. Sometime that morning, inside Concordia Place, Shaniqua Kinnard was murdered in her own home. The same home she was born in. The same home she had spent 4 years trying to make safe enough for her children to grow up in. And the children were there. All 6 of them, the oldest 13 years old, the youngest 9 months. At some point that morning, they found their mother's body. They called for help. Emergency services responded to the Concordia Place address. And within hours, Area 2 detectives were on the scene, processing evidence and pulling witness statements. Let that sit for a moment. Those kids did everything right. They called for help, and they still have to grow up without her. The investigation moved fast, unusually fast. By July 14th, just 72 hours after the homicide, Chicago police formally charged 30-year-old Jarve Toms Dixon with first-degree murder. Same age as Shaniqua, same district, and a prior criminal record the system already had on file. Burglary, looting, 2020, felony charges that led nowhere close to accountability or rehabilitation. 3 days from body to charges. That kind of speed means the evidence was overwhelming. The witness testimony was undeniable, or both. Likely both. The exact nature of the relationship between Toms Dixon and Shaniqua remains under active investigation. But the fact that this happened inside her home, not outside, not in a hallway, inside her home, says everything about proximity and access that needs to be said. Now, I promised you 2 safety tips back in chapter 1. Here they are, and I need you to take these seriously. Safety tip 1, trust the record, not the personality. In cases like this one, where the perpetrator carries prior felony convictions, the warning signs almost always exist in the record before the violence does. Before you allow someone regular access to your home, especially as a single parent, look them up. Cook County court records are public. Chicago police arrest records are accessible. It takes 10 minutes. 10 minutes that could change everything for you and your children. Safety. Tip 2, build a daily check-in system. Shaniqua's children were the first people to find her that morning. There was no adult safety net triggered, no outside person who noticed the silence and acted on it. If you are a single parent in a high-risk area, establish a daily check-in with at least one trusted adult outside your home. A neighbor, a family member, a close friend. If you miss that check-in, they call someone. It is simple, it works, and it creates a layer of accountability that no perpetrator can control or predict. I didn't have to put those tips in this video, but if this channel stops even one family from living through what Shaniqua's kids lived through, that's the entire point. If you believe that matters, hit the like button and share this video right now. Not for the algorithm, for Shaniqua, because the people who ignored her were always counting on everyone staying quiet. Don't be quiet. Jarve Toms Dixon had a criminal record. The system had it on file. And 5 years after those 2020 charges, he was inside a mother's home with her 6 children present. So here's the question I need you to answer in the comments. At what point does the system become responsible for what it failed to prevent? Where does personal accountability end and institutional failure begin? Because the final chapter of this story has an answer that I think is going to hit differently than anything you've heard so far. By mid-July 2025, over 230 people had donated to a GoFundMe page for 6 children who lost their mother on a Friday in July. More than $10,000 from people who had never met Shaniqua Kinnard, never set foot inside Concordia Place, never heard the name Shaniqua Star before that week. That number tells you exactly who she was. Her family didn't wait for the grief to settle before they started moving. Christine Marshall and Monica Cobb organized immediately. Funeral expenses, housing stability, food, clothing, and school supplies for 6 kids who suddenly had nothing left but each other. Professional trauma counseling for children who had seen something no child should ever have to process. An education fund, because Shaniqua spent her entire life fighting so her kids could have more than she did. And her family refused to let that vision die with her. The village showed up. The Rainbow Push Coalition and housing advocates across Chicago pointed to her case as proof that the system needed to be restructured at its foundation, not patched, not reviewed with a committee, rebuilt, because Shaniqua had gone through every proper channel available to her. Tenant associations, federal regulators, public pressure, media coverage, Reverend Jesse Jackson standing beside her, and none of it kept her safe. As of early 2026, Jarvie Toms Dixon's first-degree murder case is still moving through Cook County courts. The family is still waiting, and Concordia Place is still standing. Here's what I keep coming back to. Shaniqua Kinnard was born in that apartment, raised her children in that apartment, and was murdered in that apartment. All while the people responsible for its safety collected their checks and looked the other way. The cruelest irony in this entire story is that she spent 4 years trying to make that building safe enough to live in. In the end, it was the last place she ever was. I told you at the very beginning of this video that Shaniqua was one of the most dangerous people in Chicago. Not because of violence, because she knew exactly how broken the system was, and she was willing to say it out loud in public, with evidence in her hands, in front of the people benefiting from the problem. That kind of thing makes powerful people deeply uncomfortable, and someone decided that was too much. Jarvie Toms Dixon took Shaniqua's voice from her children. The least we can do is make sure the rest of the world hears it. Subscribe, turn on that bell notification, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Shaniqua spent 4 years fighting for a safe home and was murdered in the only home she ever knew. Her killer had a record. The building still had rats. The system still had no answers. So I'll leave you with this one final question. If Shaniqua Kinnard had been wealthy, living in a protected neighborhood with responsive management and real legal recourse, would any of this have happened the same way? Leave your honest, unfiltered thoughts below. I'm reading every single one. To the family of Shaniqua Kinnard, to her 6 children, to Christine, to Monica, and to every single person in that community who called her Shaniqua Star. She is not forgotten here. She was a fighter, a mother, a light, who on this channel will not let her story disappear into a court file. To everyone who made it to the end, thank you for watching, for your attention, and for joining us on this journey of reflection. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and above all, stay safe. See you on our next video.